So we're going to get ready to start pretty soon, you guys. So just remember, our seniors have worked really hard on their senior projects all year, and they've done some really cool stuff. So be a really awesome audience and give them your full attention. Please have your iPods, cell phones out and turned off and put away so that they don't interrupt the presentation. And then also think of some thoughtful questions to ask and those sort of things, all right? And we're going to get started. So if you want to go shut the door, and Lauren can take it away.
Hi, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Benveniste, and for my senior project, I was a volunteer for an organization called Perfect Pals. So a little overview on what I'm going to be explaining to you today about my project was a background on Perfect Pals, what my goals were when I began, how I received the job, my volunteering schedule, and what it's like in a day in the life of a volunteer, and then finally my outcome after the project. And this is one of the cats I volunteered with who is blind. So that was a really cool experience to work with him. So how I chose to become a volunteer, in the past I've done a lot of volunteering experiences. My mom and I are members of National Charity League, which is a mother-daughter philanthropy organization where I've gotten experience with volunteering in many different organizations, and I found that I really did love volunteering. I'm also the playroom coordinator for the Junior Orthopedic Guild here at Eastlake, so I've had experience in leadership roles within organizations that volunteer. So when I began my project, I knew that I wanted to do something that I was passionate about, and I also have a love for cats. So at home I have 2 cats of my own, and I thought if I combined something I was passionate about and what I loved, it would be a project that I really did enjoy doing, which turned out to be true. So a little bit about what Perfect Pals is. Perfect Pals is a nonprofit, no-kill animal shelter for cats, which is a sanctuary that was founded in 1988. Perfect Pals their goal is to end homelessness in Puget Sound, to have communities that place and prevent homelessness among cats. It's a big problem in our area, and they do a great job in preventing and helping place homeless cats in loving homes. So the main shelter for Perfect Pals is located in Arlington, Washington, which is up north, and they have many different rooms for cats with different diseases. For example, they have a room dedicated solely to cats with FIV, which is the equivalent to HIV. So it gives cats that would not normally have the opportunity to live to have a great experience, live out the rest of their lives, and hopefully get better in the illnesses that they may have. So after they built the Arlington shelter, there's 15 branches of Perfect Pals in the Northwest, anywhere from stores such as Petco, PetSmart, and local animal stores. Petco or stores such as that offers the space, and Perfect Pals brings in the materials and the volunteers and their own cats where they can then be adopted out. So it's a great organization. I had a few friends recommend it to me when I began my project, and I did enjoy working with them, and I really did enjoy what they offered. So a few of the goals when I began my project was I knew that this was kind of a more lenient project. I knew I wanted to be a volunteer, and I wanted to be a good volunteer, but I didn't really know at the beginning what that meant. I found out when I did my project a lot of different ways to improve myself as a volunteer, but when I began, I knew that it would probably involve being a strong communicator, having good verbal skills, and learning how to be a productive volunteer, which I didn't exactly know going in what that meant, but at the end I definitely found out how to be a good volunteer. So these are also a few of the cats that I volunteered with. So how I received the job of a volunteer, I filled out an online application to be a Perfect Pals volunteer. It was a pretty easy application, and I heard back about within a week from their head coordinator, which let me pick out what location I wanted to work at and what times. I ended up working at the Issaquah Petco located on Gilman Boulevard, and they were really great, and I enjoyed volunteering there. Luckily, Petco has a rule where you can adopt, after you're 16, you can volunteer without an adult, so that was really helpful in making my project move seamlessly. So my volunteering schedule, I volunteered every Sunday starting in about September, October time area through the present time from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It was a great project because I was responsible for being there at that time every single week. I could plan out my weekends accordingly so that I would know that, okay, 10 o'clock, that's senior project time, I need to be there, and I ended up really enjoying going to volunteering. And it was great because I was then accountable for if I could not be there, I would have to find my own replacement so that they would know that I'm not going to be there and it's up to me to make that change. So how I was trained, the first training for all new volunteers is in Shoreline, which was quite a drive, but it was a really good experience because I got to learn more about the Perfect Pals mission and what their statements are about how you can handle different situations as being a volunteer, and I got to leave that with my volunteering t-shirt, so then every time I went to Perfect Pals I had my uniform, as you could say. And then I was trained in the shelter by my mentor, Chris Kohler. She taught me different ways to clean, sanitize, how to appropriately talk to visitors, and it was great to have her as my mentor and my trainer because I felt like I was really comfortable talking to her. So here's a little up-close view of a day in the life of my volunteering. So my first part of volunteering was I'd arrive at 10 a.m., normally 9:55, waiting for them to open the doors, but I'd come in, get to see, if you've ever been to the Issaquah Petco, it's the area when you walk in on the left, there's some cubbies on the outside and then a door where there's a room with cats more also on the inside. So when I get there, I would normally get there first because I live a lot closer than the other two volunteers. So I'd open up, take out pet gates and set up an area so that the cats could roam around and be free and get to be a little active. Then I'd open up all the cubbies and go into the room, let all those cats out, and then I'd start on taking out toys for them and wait for the other volunteers there, and then we'd begin the cleaning process. So what that involved would be, the first process was cleaning out the litter boxes and cleaning out the cubbies. So I normally didn't sweep out the litter boxes. A few times when I was there by myself, that was my responsibility, but I had a few other responsibilities along with that. So we'd sweep out the litter boxes, take out the garbage, and then the way that Perfect Pals sees to make their cats have a nice experience and feel like they're more at home was every day we would sweep out their cubbies and clean them down so that they had a fresh way to start every day. And then my other responsibilities would be to replenish food and get clean water for all the cats. And then after that was done, the biggest responsibility of being a volunteer began. This would normally be around 11:30, depending on how messy the cats were, but the biggest responsibility of being a volunteer was socializing the cats, because a lot of these cats came from really bad homes or not having a home, where they were found on the street, they were found in a gutter, their owners abused them, they lost an eye, they had really, really terrible illnesses where their owners could not take care of them, and Perfect Pals offered them a chance to have a better life. So as my job as a volunteer, I was helping them become more socialized, make them more welcoming to a family, so that if someone came in, they would be comfortable to go up to them and not be scared and hide in their cubby, which in many instances we had cats that would come in and for a straight month and a half we could not open up their cubby because it had to be covered in dark, or else they would hide in the back corner and never move and not eat because they were so terrified. So it was a big job on my part to be a good volunteer by socializing these cats and also getting them accustomed to being around people, which was one of the greatest takeaways from this project. And I also, a big part of it with the communication skills would be talking to all the visitors that came into the Petco on Sunday mornings. As you can imagine, Petco is normally very busy with people coming in, especially when it's sunny outside. We'd have lots of young kids and visitors and families that would visit every single week. So it was important to be able to talk to families that weren't really familiar with how to pet a cat, so that we would prevent injuries and make it so the cats didn't get scared. So that was a big part of my project. So then after I'd meet the visitors, share the Perfect Pals missions, it would normally be about 1 o'clock, and then I'd hand off my shift to the next set of volunteers. So here's some pictures of me with the cats. I would say there was probably about 100 different cats that I met in this experience, so I don't remember all of their names, but I do remember their personalities. That was a big, oh I know, that's Shayla. She was a huge cat. When she came in, she was about 30 pounds, and she got put on a diet, an exercise plan, so she lost about 10 by the time I left, but she's adopted out now. And then these are some other cats. It was really cool because when I first started, it was kitten season, so we had lots of kittens coming in, but it's just starting back up now in the spring, so that was cute. That was one of our kittens, and they would normally go, if they came in, shipments would come in for new cats a lot of the times on Saturday nights after adoption events. So when I'd get there Sunday morning, I'd be the first person to see all these new kittens. So it was really cool when I'd get in because they'd be super excited to see you. And here's a little up close on one of the cats that I worked with. This is Ursia. She was one of the meanest cats I've ever met in my life. She was hissed at everyone, didn't like anyone. When you get in there, she was just trying to cause a problem. And she was there for about 3 months until she got adopted, and I wasn't there this day, but as a Perfect Pals volunteer, you receive emails every day after the end of everyone's shift to our Issaquah Petco Google group. So I got an email one day saying, Ursia got adopted. Old couple came in and they were just walked in and she was super calm, walked up to them and fell in love. So there's miracle stories with these angry cats. All of the times they end up finding an old couple that just really seems to like them. So I was really happy when she got adopted. And then this is Perry, and he's with the volunteer that I work with, Emma. She's the same age as me, and he was actually blind and he didn't have one of his eyeballs, but he was the cutest little cat that I've ever met. Was about maybe 8 weeks old when we got him, and he was there for a couple weeks because people were kind of unfamiliar with how to react to a blind cat, and he was super sweet, and we were all really sad when he goes. So along with the experience of being happy when mean old cats leave, you get kind of sad when the cute ones that you really get to love leave, but also happy at the same time because you're glad they get to go to loving homes. So a little bit about who I worked with. As you can guess, lots of cats. As I said before, probably about 100 different cats. New ones coming every week. And I volunteered with my mentor and her daughter, so they were really great to work with, and we enjoyed volunteering together. And I also got to be familiar with the people who would come in every week. There was this one couple who would come in every Sunday after church because they couldn't have a cat in their apartment, so they would come in and play with them for about a half an hour every week, so we could count on them being there. I got to know a lot of the Petco employees pretty well because we'd have to work with them to use, it was their facility, so when we needed to dispose of something, it was a good relationship between them. So some of my accomplishments within this project, I feel like when I started I was pretty comfortable with talking in front of people, but now I was really more outgoing to meet new different people that would come into the store, so I could just go up to me, hi, how are you today? I'm from Perfect Pals, do you know what we do? And they would normally say, no, what is Perfect Pals? And I'd get to explain to them what our mission was, what we stand for, and then mostly it was really difficult but important to explain to every potential adopter. There's 3 main rules that Perfect Pals follows when you want to adopt a cat. You have to promise that they won't be declawed because it is part of our mission that we keep them humane, and we don't allow that, so they have to sign a contract that they won't declaw, that they won't let their cat outside because these cats, as I said before, come from really, really bad backgrounds. So by putting them out in the outdoor environment, they're not going to know what to do, and it's more likely that they will be killed. So we want them to make sure they live a happy and healthy rest of their lives, so they have to promise not to do that. And they also have to promise that if they ever need to return a cat, they can't bring it to us because we don't have enough space to host the cats, because at any time we are filled to capacity most of the time. So they have to promise to bring the cat back up to Arlington if something does happen, like an allergy or something like that. So it was important as my communication skills to be able to relay those messages onto all potential adopters so that they knew that was important. And then I also felt really accomplished when I would adopt cats out to loving homes. It was a great feeling to see a cat that you've worked with personally and move them on to a great household where they felt comfortable in. And I also felt very accomplished that I would socialize these cats even if I wasn't there when they'd get adopted. It was important for me to have that feeling of this cat came in and was really angry, and when I worked with him he got a lot better and he ended up getting adopted. So it was a rewarding experience and I felt really accomplished afterwards. So here is the wall picture of all the cats that got adopted in 2012 from Perfect Pals in the Issaquah location. I can just point out a few. That this is little Perry down here, who I talked about earlier. This was one of those cats that I never thought would get adopted. Her name was Casey, and she was there when I got there, and she left almost when I left because she was one of those cats that didn't like anyone, and she ended up finding one of the volunteers really just fell in love with her and ended up taking her home. So it's cool to see this at our location, and it's also a good way to show how big of an impact Perfect Pals makes on the community of cats. It's not just 2 or 3 cats that get adopted, it's amazing the numbers. So how I did my accumulating presentation about Perfect Pals is I presented to my DECA chapter about what I did for my project a couple weeks ago, and it was cool because I was able to explain to them why I enjoy doing volunteering for my project, and then as my So what I learned, these are also some of the cats. We have a big cat tree. This is kind of the corner of what it looks like, and a lot of times the cats are up on here sleeping, or they jump on top of the roof and just chill up there. So my outcome of my project, when I started, I said that I wanted to learn what it was like to be a good volunteer, and I feel like I came away with knowing that. Volunteering is really important to the community, and being a good volunteer is someone who's on time, someone who's there because they want to be there. someone who gives their full effort even if they are tired, even if they're kind of not happy to be around cats today, they'll still do it because they know that they're making a difference and an impact on these cats' lives. So out of my project, I would have changed nothing. I started right on time. I felt like I stayed on track, and by having a weekly schedule, I was really comfortable with how it was going. I truly did enjoy my project. I had fun with it. I did something that I loved, and I would always recommend that to anyone planning their senior project. My advice to future seniors is to pick something that you do enjoy. And as I said, I love cats, and by working with cats, it was an easy project. I didn't feel like it was something that I had to pull hair to go do. I do recommend you start early. Just even if it's not the summer start, just start on time and you'll be fine. And do have good communication with your mentor, because if something's changed, you need to make sure they know. I don't recommend to wait to January to start your project. I don't think anyone really recommends that. And don't keep information from your panel if something does change. It's important to have good communication with them, so that, as I did with my project, I ended up changing my mentor because I started with someone who was more higher up in the Perfect Pals organization. I felt more comfortable working with the person who I spent every week with. So it was important when I changed my mentor that my panel knew and Ms. Nasby knew, so that's something to make sure you keep on top of. And overall, I loved my project, and I'm happy to talk about it. And this is a cute calico named Cha Cha that was probably my favorite cat. So thank you, and do you have any questions?
So when you're looking at the families to take the cats and adopt the cats, how do you figure out, like, this is going to be a good, I know you have the contract and they sign these things, but how do you figure out that they are going to be a good and loving home for the pets? Do you do any kind of checks or house visits or that kind of stuff with them?
We do a questionnaire before where we ask kind of basic questions about like how you take care of a cat, if your cat is like declawing, returned cats, abused cats, and so we check that list before we adopt out. And then we also, just as a volunteer, you can kind of tell when a family's comfortable, and if they have any children under the age of 6, they can't adopt out kittens. So that's kind of one of our basis rules, and we see if we kind of, on all of our sheets, it tells you, are these cats good with dogs, other cats, their personalities are like this, do you have, and then I started asking her, do you have any other cats, do you have children? And she told me that she had 3 kids under the age of 6, and I had to tell her, I'm sorry, but our policy is that you can't adopt. And she ended up yelling at me on the phone saying that I was a discrimination against her kids and all of these things, and was yelling at me, and I just had to kindly say, I'm sorry, but if you really want to adopt a cat, you can always come in. We have lots of adult cats. It's just our policy, and I'm sorry that I have to message that or tell you that. And she was really rude, and I was kind of upset after that phone call, but the way I handled it, I just had to tell her that's our policy, and if she didn't agree with that, she probably shouldn't be adopting a cat from us. So that was probably the most difficult one that I had to do.
Another question, so with the cat that was blind, what kind of things does a family need to know to take care of a cat that's blind? Were there certain things that were different than a cat who's sighted, or? There was
a big expense because they had to have more checkups. There was ones, especially like right when they adopted the cat, they had to take him in for an eye appointment, and we found out that that was something that was a struggle for them. So we, as a volunteering staff, fundraised and raised money for them to give towards the appointments that they would have to make. But the cat was born that way, had like a glossiness over the eye. He wasn't completely blind. He could see some things, but he could kind of, I don't know, sense. It didn't seem like he was blind all the time, but it was mostly just the expense. And when he found a family that was right for them, they just knew that they would take care of him for that.
Lauren, you mentioned that once somebody adopts a cat, they can't bring it back, right?
They can't bring it back to the Issaquah location, but they can bring it back to the main location in Arlington, because they have the space and we don't.
Awesome.
All right, any other questions? All right.
You rambling.